Hello and welcome back to Dan Talks United. So yes, a strange game today. 1-1 draw with Leeds at Elland Road against the old arch rivals. It doesn't feel like we've had this rivalry for quite some years, because obviously Leeds United have not been in the Premier League that long, really. They've been sort of up and down, and when they've been down, they've not been back in the league for quite some time. So back at Elland Road anyway, they've had a good form for Leeds at Elland Road. So you could say normally it would be a good draw. Didn't get a chance to do a preview video for this game, but I would have said, and it's easy for me to say now because I've seen the game, but I would have said about 1-1, to be honest, for my score prediction. So yes, not happy because obviously you always want to win. And we are due a win, or due a winning run, should I say. But again, it's always a tough game against Leeds normally, unless you've got Scott McTominay, who likes to play against Leeds, and Bruno actually. So suppose today you're kind of sort of thankful that we've come away with a point in a sense, because the team that we've put out, we haven't really got much players to draw on really. As you know, we've got a lot of players that are out injured. And then the players that are off at AFCON as well. So in terms of creativity and that chance to sort of score goals, very limited. However, we'll come on to the players a bit later on, but we did have some chances, as did Leeds, to be fair to them. And that's why you could probably say ending 1-1 isn't ideal for us and the ambition that we should have as Manchester United and where we want to really finish in the league and for our progress going forward. However, the teams that have gone to Leeds, I think there's been some big teams that have gone to Leeds and either come away with a point themselves or come away with no points. So in that respect, you can say it is a well-deserved point anyway in terms of overall performance. However, performance still isn't quite where it should be. Still a little bit of indecisiveness from Amorim for me. Seemed to have gone back to that sort of three at the back in a way. Did try and sort of flood the midfield a little bit, but again, we'll come on to the sort of breakdown of the game. So as always, please put your comments in the chat, just how you feel that this game's gone today against Leeds, and just also so we've got some talking points and stuff that we can get into. So let's get into it. So like I was saying, we're playing Leeds at Elland Road. It's finished 1-1. First goal of the game came from Aronson, and then Cunha levelled up in the 65th minute. So as always, can't keep a clean sheet. We've allowed them to score that goal from a mistake, but just coming on to a couple of things before we get into that. So I'd say at the start of the game, it was quite even. I think the match was quite even overall anyway, in terms of, we'll come on to sort of possession stuff later on, but looking at it from an eye test point of view, it did feel like it was quite an even game, really. Early doors though, first half, there was a chance, an opportunity for us to score through Cunha. He actually puts the ball into the back of the net. Really nice volley, low sort of finish into the bottom corner. However, as always, we've always got a player or two that can't stay on side, and unfortunately, the goal gets ruled out. I think he did strike it after the flag went up anyway, but yeah, we had a couple of players that are offside, so it didn't count. Again, sort of build up, for example, I'd say it was a little bit better than the last game, but still a little bit slow for me at times. There was a lot of sort of Martinez sort of on the ball, waiting for someone to make a run or someone to make some space, and he was almost like pointing when I was on the ball. There was a lot of that going on, to be honest with you. Not a lot of good movement up front, which you would expect. Again, I think I've said it before with Sesko, sort of gets isolated a little bit on his own, does all right with the hold-up play here and there, but when it comes to sort of someone just making a decoy run, there's nobody really doing that, especially with the players that we've got available. So you can sort of give him the benefit of the doubt for that reason, and hopefully things are going to improve once our players are back. So obviously, problem is, and one key sort of thing that has happened in the last couple of games is that although the midfield sort of gets bypassed in two ways for me. So the midfield's getting bypassed in the sense of not a lot's going through it for creativity, but also it was sort of getting bypassed today in the sense of it was either going through pretty easily or it was going down the sides. There wasn't a lot of midfield battles going on. There was not a lot that sort of Casemiro was doing. I thought Agati was busy getting around, nicking the ball, that sort of thing, but I didn't feel like that was like this massive sort of showdown in midfield. It just felt like it was bypassed in many ways today. But at the same time, I don't think we're as easy to play through as we are when Bruno's there. But then when you have got Bruno, you've got more creativity. So it is sort of a catch-22 type situation, really. Then I think it was Calvert-Lewin got a chance as well to make it 1-0 for them. Hits the post with a diving header. So both teams had chances, really. I'm not saying loads of chances, but both teams had chances to sort of bring it to 1-0 for their teams. And then in the end, it was Aronson that sort of broke the deadlock. There was a bit of a pissing about as usual. Dalot tries to pass it inside from the touchline. Tame pass, really terrible pass, and then Leeds sort of intercept it. A ball's played through direct. Aronson's really quick. I think Heaven misjudged his pace probably and sort of got caught on his heels, and he was sort of, obviously by the time he's got into the box, Heaven can't really touch him anyway. I think if he'd have caught up to him just before the box, he'd have probably would have brought him down, but you can't do that obviously in the area. And then Aronson, nothing that Le Mans could do really, just slots it bottom corner across Le Mans. Obviously Le Mans comes out to try and narrow the angle, but I think Aronson was in control of that situation and puts a neat finish into the bottom corner. We could have prevented it. Couldn't have stopped the goal per se once he was in that situation, but we could have prevented him getting to that position. So again, another sort of mistake and mishap, really. Don't want to get on to Heaven because I will be speaking about him anyway. I think he played well. It's just that he'd made a mistake there. And again, our young players are going to make mistakes. It's very tough at the time when the emotions are high and you're thinking you could have done better there, but we have to expect or concede that they're going to make mistakes, himself and Yoro. And we have got a lot of young players coming through because that's all we seem to be buying these days is young players. I know we bought a couple of experienced ones in Mbeumo and Cunha, but there's been a lot of sort of trying to sort of copy that sort of City and more Chelsea model where you're buying young players hoping that they're going to turn into gems. And if they don't, try and sell them on for a bit of profit so then you can go again. So there's a lot of that going on. But anyway, back into the game. So there was also a nice cross that came in. I think it was Cunha that played across the box. Sesko wasn't quite there, but if a Dorgu had that instinct as a forward player just to dart towards the 6-yard box, he could have got a tap in, but he just didn't really have that frame of mind. I suppose, again, not really an attacking player, is he, Dorgu? He's more a defender anyway. But again, if you're playing in that position, for me, instead of just being caught watching, just gamble. And you are playing high up anyway, so you've got enough defenders behind you to help you out if you didn't connect to the ball. But unfortunately, doesn't do that. So, like I say, in terms of sort of shape and setup, again, stuck to that sort of 3-4-3 in a sense. I did feel like the centre-backs were playing sort of wide from each other, so it did feel like Yoro was almost like a right-back at times. But however, did look like a 3-4-3 to me. Did look like Dalot was almost doing the up and down and filling in a little bit in midfield, and then Dorgu was doing the same on the other side. Shaw, to be fair, was playing quite high up and getting into dangerous positions. Problem was, again, it's just that final third. I say just that. That's what counts in terms of if we're going to fashion any chances or score any goals. We need to be a lot better in that final third. I did feel like Cunha was doing that normal maverick type play when he was trying to just hold onto the ball. Sometimes, again, too long, but also just trying to be the talisman and sort of take on the team and score the goal. And obviously, he did get a goal in the end. So going into the second half, there was no substitutions from Amorim, so he didn't sort of take anybody off like he did last game when he took Xerxes off. Sort of went with the same team, probably giving him very similar sort of instructions. Not much sort of change really. We sort of started that second half very similar to the first half. So there's not really much to report there. Didn't really see any sort of tactical tweaks. I think the intensity was very similar, and I think we didn't up our intensity until I suppose that goal anyway. And like I say, it's a goal that we could have avoided. But again, as I was saying, just checking there, just please put your comments in below. Tell me how you feel that the game went for yourself and how you saw it. Didn't obviously probably have to be there, but again, this is meant to be a really big game between Manchester United and Leeds, with the rivalry that goes over many, many years. I'm not going to go into the history and stuff, but many, many years of rivalries, and it's probably outside of football, some of it as well, to be honest with you. In terms of tension, whether the players felt it, there's a lot of players that probably weren't even born when this rivalry was really at its highest in regards to football, that is. So it's whether that carries through when the players don't really feel it. The managers are both managers that are not involved in it either. There isn't got that sort of ingrained feeling of that sort of rivalry. So again, it's hard to say whether that was taken onto the pitch or not. Obviously, the fans will feel it. Obviously, the fans know about the rivalry, so that would have been there. I mean, there was a lot of the time I think it was the first half when TNT dropped a stinker. You couldn't even hear the sound for quite some time, so they had to apologise for loss of sound. So I assume that people watching got the same issues. So anyway, back to the game. Like I say, second half, very similar to start to the first half, and like I say, until Leeds scored. Again, as I was saying earlier, that sort of poor situation from Dalot that's led to their first goal. But we did come back pretty quickly, which you've got to sort of commend the team for returning so quickly. It's one of those where you could sort of miss what happened if you blinked, really. Very obviously, Xerxes came on as I think that was a response to that going a goal down. So that's quite, well, I say impressive. I don't want to go too far. I am happy that Amorim reacted, because there's times where I feel like the other coach for the other team reacts and then we don't. But I'll come on to something in regards to that as well. But yeah, reacted pretty quickly. Put Xerxes on, takes Euro off. And I wouldn't say goes for it, because I don't feel like we'd sort of really upped things per se, but it just gave us an extra attacking player that's more forward thinking and would look for the pass. And I think he does pretty well sort of supporting that forward player. So he puts a sort of threaded ball through to Cunha. Cunha sort of on his way down, sort of falling at the same time, but very sort of similar finish in a way to Aronson's. So sort of on the angle and shooting across the keeper. Don't think their keeper was very good today, by the way. Don't really know too much about him. Don't watch much of Leeds, but yeah, a very nice sort of slotted finish into the opposite corner. Keeper did come out to try and narrow the angle down, but Cunha was ahead of things and slots home quite nicely. I think he probably deserved a goal. I think he's probably been desperate for a goal, Cunha, because he wants to sort of take on that mantle with Bruno being out. And he has been, I feel at times, over trying. So again, I don't know what you guys think. So yeah, Xerxes, when he came on, it was sort of a mixed performance for me. I think he sort of came on with promise, came on and sort of were looking to thread passes and what have you. I just didn't see a lot of busting a gut and a lot of urgency from him, but he is quite a laid-back player anyway, Xerxes. And obviously, I think his future, to a certain extent, or his short-term future anyway, sort of up in the air. Do believe he's been having, as I've said before, having talks with Roma to probably go back over to Italy to play on loan there until the end of the season. So it's whether that's been concluded, whether it's on the card still, or whether it's got to a point now where he's been told he's got to stay, because we aren't I know it's only 4th day into January, but we're not hearing very much about any players that we might be going for. Very sort of strange press conference from Amorim around transfers. Didn't want to commit to anything. I think a lot of it's about, obviously, money. A lot of it's about whether they want to take the summer's spend forward into January. And it's all going to be opportunistic. I think you can sort of get it to a certain extent, but I think if you want to finish in the top sort of 5, top 4, I believe you've got to make some signings. Very difficult, as much as we all want signings in midfield. I think it is looking very much like Baleba. I know I'm drifting off to transfers, but it's all relevant in regards to our performance and where we're going next. But I just feel that they really are going for Baleba. I think that's the player that's almost there that you can pick up. Soon as Brighton give us the nod, I think he comes. And it's, again, we could talk about it if it happens, if it's the right signing and what have you. And I think there's going to be a lot of opinions that it might not be the right signing because he's not played particularly well this season. I think is in the AFCON. I don't know if I'm here. He's playing all right there. But anyway, it's definitely something to be looking at. It looks like they've probably done some tentative sort of discussions with Brighton, but Brighton is still maintaining, although he's not playing well, you're not going to lowball us. You're not going to get him on the cheap in January just because he's in poor form. You're going to wait till summer. We're going to wait it out and hope that he improves his performance, and then we're wanting to maintain how much he's worth in their opinion. I wouldn't want to be paying that sort of 100 million sort of barrier. I don't think is worth that for me. I think, trying to take out his performances and sort of think about when he was at his height, he was probably around that sort of maybe 50, 60 million mark maybe, but starting to go into that sort of 80, 90, 100 million. I don't think he's Caicedo in that respect. I'm not even saying Caicedo was worth that, by the way, but I just don't think he's there age-wise and what he's shown. Has he shown consistently over many seasons that he's playing at a high level? And then again, you're looking at how he's playing at the moment. Yes, you can say it's down to his head being turned, but I'm not so sure. But anyway, like I say, he's made that positive substitution with Xerxes. It's made the difference. It's made an impact in terms of drawing level pretty quickly after Aronson, because I must admit, I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought once that first Leeds United goal had gone in, I thought, this could be tricky now. This could end. It could go either way. It's one of those where it could have gone 2-0, for example, and then that's it. Or it goes to us 1-1, and then maybe we can even snatch 2-1 in the end. But wasn't to be. It's one of those games where both teams, as much as they might be both disappointed, because you should always play for 3 points. Even Wolves are playing for 3 points these days because they've got their first 3 points the other day. You're going to want 3 points, and so that's the disappointing side of things. But then how we've got to look at it, and I don't like making excuses for the team, but we have to be honest with ourselves and say, look at the team that we've put out. Just going to have a quick look just to see, just looking on Sky app there. So in terms of our substitutions, discount the goalkeeper, but we've got Kakunke, Malacia, Fredrickson, both Fletcher brothers. Obviously Xerxes came on, got Shea Lacey and Mantato. So the only player there that you're going to probably say probably should have got a little bit of a look in is maybe Shea Lacey, but it's a difficult one when you're playing against such a rival, such a hostile environment, Elland Road. Putting on a youngster in that environment when you're either losing or drawing, it's a difficult thing to do, really. So I think in terms of substitutions, I don't think he had much choice in regards to who he put on. And again, the argument is whether he should have put anybody else on. And to be honest with you, looking at that bench, that's probably one of the weakest benches I've seen in a while. We've had some weak benches recently, but that's not great. And this is one of those games where, again, you never know how the game's going to pan out, because you can always say, if this player played, this would have happened, or if that player played, that could happen. But I'm sure Leeds were without players as well. It was one of those where I think if we probably I say only needed, but maybe if we had like a Mount, let's say, in this game, it might have sort of tipped the balance a little bit, purely because of Mount's energy, his pressing ability, and winning that ball high up. That would have given us a few more opportunities potentially. He's got a goal in him as well, and it gives you just a further opportunity for substitution. So if he didn't start, which I'm sure he would have done with this team, it just gives you that a little bit more flexibility around substitutions. Because when you look at your bench, and we shouldn't have to, well, we shouldn't say this when we're playing against Leeds, but you look at Leeds' bench compared to ours. I'm just going to have a quick look at their bench. There's going to be quite a difference in terms of how they can change the game, really. So obviously when I'm in the game watching it, and you can see that Daniel Farke's making positive substitutions, especially towards the end, around the 80th minute, you're thinking, right, what are we going to do? But when you think about it, you look at our bench, what can we do? So looking at their bench, you've got, Sean Longstaff, Tanaka, they brought him on anyway. Noto, a good player, Noto. He was good. He was a good player the last time Leeds were up. I'm not sure about this season. Nemeka. So again, I don't know all the names, but Jack Harrison, I think he's played pretty well for him. So in terms of maybe not big names, but they've got more senior players that they could bring off the bench, and attacking players as well that can change the game. So Noto's one of those tricky sort of wide men. Didn't play particularly well today, but he's one of those tricky wide men that could make a difference, could beat a man, could get a nice cross in. Got a goal in him as well. We didn't really have that sort of change in us, so it was always going to be quite tough. But getting back into the game and sort of before we sort of break down plays and stuff like that, I did feel today as well that Le Mans had another decent game. I think there was one save at his near post that he did that were pretty well, and then he saved an overhead kick from Okafor as well, so that was a good save. It didn't have loads of power in it, but it's one of those where you expect to save. But again, looking at the goalkeepers that we've had over the years, that's the sort of shot that could easily go past a Bayender or a Onana, or they could actually just put the ball in their own net, to be honest with you. So again, a decent performance. It's one of those where you sort of feel for Le Mans, because I think there's times where he deserves more clean sheets than he gets. And like today's one of those days where we defend better or we don't make those mistakes. He gets a clean sheet because you can't save that Aronson shot for me. So it's a little bit unlucky for him. But again, please, guys that are watching, put your comments in. Let's have a discussion. Let's see what you guys think. Feel free to put your comments below. So today, let's just have a really quick chat before we start looking at breakdown on football. But let's have just a really quick chat about Sesko. What are we thinking about Sesko today? What are we thinking about his performance? And I, like many people, many Man United fans, want Sesko to do well, because I think he's got a lot of potential. He's got for a tall guy, generally speaking, he's got decent feet. Although lately he can look a little bit sort of Bambi on ice sort of thing, but he's got decent feet, decent hold-up play. Looking at his past performances in the Bundesliga, he's got a good strike on him. I probably said it before when he first came in that he's one of those, again, going into stats, if you're into stats, but he's one of those people that exceeds his XG. So he's scoring goals in a sense that isn't a goal that you'd expect him to score. And I think sometimes when you've got people that you rely on that score goals, and I've said this before more recently with Mbeumo and Cunha, I think they both exceeded their XGs for their last clubs. So the problem with that is when you want them to score your traditional goals or the goals you expect them to score, can they do it? And is those exceeding XG, are they goals that are one-offs because they're like wonder strikes? And if you look at the sort of compilation of a Sesko, there's a lot of wonder strikes in his catalogue, and you're not going to get them all the time. So what you want from your striker, as we all know, is a striker that just puts the ball in the back of the net, the striker that makes the right runs, is in the right space, is occupying defenders. And obviously these days you listen to the old school strikers, because I was watching the podcast with Scholes and Butter the other day with Andy Cole on there, and just how he talks about his time as a striker. And obviously it's completely different to what it is today. And obviously he will have had support from like a Dwight York, for example, or a Teddy Sheringham or Solskjaer or what have you. However, just their mindset that they had, there was a team spirit there, there's a team game there in their heads, but generally speaking, they've got a job to do. They get on the pitch, they occupy the defenders, they make the defenders work, they're getting their legs clipped and chopped and you name it, everything's happening to them, they're getting the shirts pulled, you name it. They're coming up against really tough defenders, centre-backs that are up against them and waiting for them to come into the box, whereas now there's a little more with the coaches these days and the zonal play and all that sort of stuff. Things are a bit different. It's always difficult to compare eras, especially right now with the way it plays, and it's always difficult to say what's the easiest period. Is it now? Was it then? However, in any case, I feel like Sesko should be doing better. And I've said before, to protect him in a sense, is that, come on, guys, what do you think about Sesko? Is he a good buy so far? Are you seeing a promising signs from him? But for me, I want to see a bit more. I want to see a bit more in the sense that I've protected him before, saying he didn't get enough chances, and I think that still is correct. So thinking that today when I'm watching the game, I'm thinking he isn't sort of showered in chances and showered in chance creation. However, he's getting the odd opportunity, and when he gets it, so he had a header, I think, went wide. He had a shot from close range, again, went wide. And I think a couple of other sort of tame efforts. And I just think, yes, you're not getting a lot, but you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready for when that opportunity arises. Now, I know it's a lot easier if you know in training you've got your wide men, which are always different these days. But let's say in this case, you've got Shaw pushing wide and high and wide. You've got Dorgo pushing high and wide. And they're sort of putting crosses in. And they're either aiming where it's low and you can tap it in, or they're aiming for your head. It should be a bit of both with Sesko, because he's got the height, but he's also got the technique to finish, or should have, or that's what we believe he has. But he isn't really getting that on a constant, so that you can actually say, right, I sort of feint a run to the near post, but then I go to the far post, for example, or vice versa, or I sort of aim for the centre of the goal, and that's where you want you to hit me. None of that's going on where there's a routine, and obviously I've said this before, where you have a repetition. So even in outside of football, in your day jobs, you've got repetition. You know what you're doing day in, day out. You know your routine, what you go through. You know your job, and if it changes, it might throw you, and you've got to improvise. And it's the same for football, where there's going to be times where things do change. You've got to improvise, so the ball might be slightly behind you, for example. Then you need to get control of it, do a turn and shoot. Whereas where you really want it, if you're that type of striker, is the ball's in front of you, you run onto it, you take a strike, or you connect to it. So all that's got to fall into place. However, I feel, although that Zirkzee cutback to him probably had a bit of, it wasn't perfect cutback, I'll be honest, but again, at that level, Premier League, you played in the Bundesliga, you play for your country, I think you don't have any excuses there. I think you've got to hit the target, and it goes wide, and I think if you hit the target, you've got a chance of it going straight in, you've got a chance of it coming off the keeper, you've got a chance of it coming off a defender, but when you just go wide like that, you don't even get a corner. It's a bit, and there's a lot of question marks. And again, you've kind of got to give him a chance, because it's the first season. Although he's come in early enough, obviously didn't get pre-season. First season, so you kind of got to let him off to a certain extent, but then you look at other strikers like, again, I've said it before, and I'll say Voltemada at Newcastle. I'm not saying he's absolutely prolific or anything. I'm not saying that he's a complete replacement for Isak, and obviously this is Newcastle Isak, not Liverpool Isak, so let's not do the recency stuff. Recency bias would say very good replacement because Isak's crap at the minute, but I'm on about when he was playing at Newcastle and playing well. So I'm not saying it's prolific. However, I still feel like he's taking his chances in a better fashion than Sesko. And I think there's a lot of confidence problems at the moment with Sesko. And I think that's where the issue is mainly. But we do need a lot more from him if we're going to start winning games. I'm going to start. And this is a game today where he scores that from the cutback from Xerxes. And I think we go away 2-1. And you could say... You can always say, was it deserved because of balance of play, blah, blah, blah. But if you score more goals than the other team, generally speaking, you deserve it unless there's been a dodgy decision by a ref. Talking about ref, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Ref wasn't too bad today. Didn't really hear too much from him. There was a lot of quick decisions made by VAR. Probably going to be more favourable because the decisions were generally looking at incidents that included a Manchester United player, so the odd sort of shout for a handball and what have you. But there were very quick decisions. Ref did a good job. The only thing I'd sort of criticise is that I felt he gave Dorgo a yellow card when he probably should have let that slide for me. It was a bit debatable, but other than that, there was no talking points. There was no drama. Considering it's a hostile environment, did all right, got on with the job, tried to keep the game flowing. Like I said, there's always going to be a couple of decisions that you don't agree with because you've got that bias anyway. But other than that, not a bad performance from the ref, so I'll give him that. So I'm just going to have a quick sort of look around on FootMob. Hopefully that is working. There we are. So, as we can see there, it was 1-1, as we know. In terms of just quickly going to look at sort of stats and not sort of dwell too much, just for those people that are interested in stats and what have you. So there's a few more people coming into the live in terms of views. So again, don't be shy, put your comments in, have a discussion, throw things at me. If you disagree with my analysis so far on your Dallos and your Cunhas and stuff like that, throw them in the chat. Let's have a chat about it. No problem there. So, stats-wise, possession stats, marginally difference there, 55% for us. Expected goals, so we shaded it there, so 1.46 to their 0.92. So we had more shots than them, 15 to their 10. On target, they had more than us, 3 to our 2. We had most big chances, that were 3. I'm sure at least 2 of them are Sesko's, if not more. And then big chances missed. We've missed 3. Accurate passes. Sorry, that would be 2. Big chances probably there because one of them were counted as Cunhas. And then going on to, I've looked at shots, is there anything else to sort of look at? So there's a lot of stuff around passes and stuff like that. So again, as you can see here down that side, right-hand side, a lot of it's in red for us. So that's where we've performed better than Leeds. Not going to go into much more than that. And then whilst we're here, let's have a quick look at the table. So we've got... as always, Arsenal at the top there. Aston Villa second. City's dropped down to third after their draw. I think was that a draw at Sunderland? Liverpool are playing now by the looks of things. Are they 1-0 up? And then we're in fifth there. And then Chelsea sort of slipped and missed some points as well. So they're in sixth at the moment. But we've played one game more than them. So I'm not sure when they're playing next. So yeah, just a few games are ongoing at the moment because we played pretty early today at 12:30. I'm just going to quickly see on Twitter if there's anything that jumps out. Just refresh the page there. I like to have a quick look at Centre Devils because they're sort of like a aggregator sort of account and sort of update on any news and what have you. It's just on about Amorim and the power scenario. Yeah, nothing there really. But I think it's just there talking about he's not going to quit. Blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to see if there was any outrageous comments from Amorim at full time. But no, doesn't seem to be much there. Okay, so as I was saying, anyway, fifth spot there. Obviously, there's other games playing, so it might change things by the end of the weekend. I'm just going to go in now to what I'd regard as sort of not player ratings per se, because I'm not going to go through each player and rate them. I'm just going to do man of the match, strong performers, and then underperformers. So for me, it was sort of a toss-up at first. So at one point I was going to go with Heaven, I'll be honest. And then with the Cunha goal and then overall performance, I've gone for Cunha for man of the match. So who do you guys think? Do you agree with Cunha? Or have you got any other players in mind that you feel should be man of the match? I'm just going to go now on to the strong performers. So for me, I felt going back to defence again. I know we conceded one, but I'm going to go with Martinez and Heaven as strong performers. I felt they played well today. I think I'm not going to say it was an out and right captain's performance from Martinez, but I think he was, because I want to see more aggression from Martinez. I don't know if sometimes he's a bit worried about getting injured, or worried about getting a card, or wanting to be a bit more disciplined if he's acting as the captain in Bruno's absence. But I felt that there was a good level of aggression from him today. I think he did well. Both him and Heaven did well on Calvert-Lewin. I think he obviously can be. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted him, by the way, when we were linked to him as a striker, because again, not saying I don't rate him per se. I think he's one of those strikers that his level is an Everton. He's gone to Leeds now. It's that sort of level. Fair play to him. He's done well at Leeds. He's scored a few goals. I get it. But it's just not the standard of what we should be looking at Manchester United is all I'm going to say. Now, obviously, that might sound strange with the way that we're performing at the moment, but I just don't think we should be looking at players like that. So, but I think that they did well with him because he's a handful. Calvert-Lewin, he's a handful. He's got a relatively good pace about him. He's got decent strength. I think if he gets a chance, so like that diving header, inch or two to the side it goes in. So I think he's always a threat. It's a threat in behind. I think he holds up the ball pretty well and he does bully defenders as well. So I think they did well to defend against him and they've stopped him scoring today. He's played his part, but he hasn't scored, so that's the thing. But yeah, I definitely think that they've played well today. Sort of in terms of other people in defence, I just think Shaw did okay in bits, but I'd say more going forward. We all know what I think about Dalot today. So I think that's pretty much fair there. I think if I was going to squeeze another player in, I'd probably squeeze Ugarte in there in terms of a strong performer, because again, I think he did what he was on the pitch to do. So obviously what we're not expecting from him is creativity. We're not expecting this high-level passer per se, or dictator of play or momentum or anything like that. It's just purely, first and foremost, there to break up play, get the ball back. So when we lose the ball, he's there to try and get the ball back. He was doing pretty well, sort of getting that ball back high up, getting his tackles in as normal, interceptions. I think he's pretty good at that. He sort of stops the other team, so Leeds in this case, playing through us as easy, because obviously, as we all know, Casemiro's getting on a bit and what have you, so he's pretty much the tone setter and a slight dictator from midfield. And I think Ugarte sort of is that sort of ravaged dog who's just at people's ankles, and I think he did well at that today, and we needed that because we didn't know what we were going to get from Leeds in terms of their midfield. And I think he, like I say, he was dogged, he was there, he was breaking up play, he was intercepting pretty well, both sort of sides of the pitch really. So I think he did run himself into the ground pretty much. So yeah, he could have squeezed in there for the strong performers in this one. And then underperformers, really sorry to say, but I've got to put Dalot in there for that mistake on the sort of touchline there. That passing field was horrendous. He was still doing that thing where, especially in the second half, when he took Yoro off and he was sort of slotting back into that sort of right side defence there. Still doing that sort of jockeying thing where he doesn't really challenge, he doesn't really put a foot in, he's not showing any aggression, he's not showing them down the line, he's sort of just jockeying and jockeying and jockeying until that player makes the decision. So he's not in control of that situation, he's letting the player be in control, whether the player wants to go left or right. I think that player's got the opportunity to do both. Whereas if you're going to defend the person properly, as I was saying before in other videos, you want to show them on the weaker foot, you want to show them down the line. And I just think Dalot just gives that person the opportunity to choose which path they want to go down. And it's almost like when you've seen players before saying, go on then, you go that way, I've got it covered. If you're a confident defender and you want to do it that way, then fine, as long as you get the ball, but you're not. And I just think, I'm not sure why he's not sort of intercepting or closing the space down. I'm not sure what that's about, if I'm honest. So anyway, Dalot goes in there for me. And then obviously I've mentioned him already, Sesko. I think we just need a lot more from Sesko. He's our number 9, he's our target man, he's our only real number 9 in the club, really, because Obi's not really done much and gone back into the youth setup. Xerxes, again, self sort of labelled as a 9.5, sort of 10 type player, not really a number 9. So we've only got Sesko really, and that's where we sort of want to hope to get our goals from, but it's just not coming. And he doesn't look like scoring either. There isn't a lot that's on target, and when it is, it's quite tame. And for someone that's got a thunderbolt of a shot, we're just not seeing it, and I just don't know what's going on. And again, convinced that we're cursed at Manchester United, and certain players that are good to top class to even world class just turn to shit when they come to Manchester United, and I just don't know what's going on. But anyway, let's give him time. Let's try and see how he gets on. Let's see what he does in second season. But first season, so far anyway, it's not looking great for Sesko. And like I say, we need a lot more from him. So again, just sort of coming towards the end of things now. Just want to quickly sort of have a sort of overview of what's happened today then. So as you know, it was 1-1 Elland Road against Leeds, arch rivals. We've probably done well to come out of there with a point to a certain extent. Disappointing, and we shouldn't be coming out there smiling, but we definitely come out there probably relieved that we came back so quickly. After 65th minute with a Cunha goal. Nice finish, nice goal. Needed to step up, by the way, Cunha. Again, don't know what you guys think, but I think we needed more from Cunha in the absence of Mbeumo, that has been poor himself anyway. Ahmad, who's been giving us a lot going forward. And obviously, I know Masra is at AFCON as well, but we don't miss him as much because I think we've got enough defenders. There has been something actually, because I think I did see it on Twitter, although I didn't see it when I flashed it up on screen there. It sounds like what Amorim's saying after the game, that Bruno possibly will get some minutes in the next match. So just round things up there, we're in 5th position at the moment. That might be changing as other teams are playing. Next game is against Burnley. I think it's at Burnley. Not sure what to think about that game yet, but again, hopefully can squeeze in a preview video for that, and we can have a look at that in a bit more detail and sort of look at how they've been playing more recently in the last 5 matches and that sort of thing that I like to do. But yeah, playing against Burnley, hard or difficult to know what that's going to look like. Hopefully we can get a win there. Shouldn't be too much of an excuse there not to get a win, because I think they are shipping goals. They are down there. Let's have a quick look at the table again, actually, whilst I'm at it. So let's have a look at the table. So yeah, so Burnley 19th, just a place above Wolves there, and just sandwiched in between West Ham. So obviously, it's not always about league position saying, oh, they're down there, so we should beat them, but they are 19th. So there shouldn't really be an excuse there. We should really be getting points there. 3 points, sorry, not just points. 3 points we should be getting there. So yeah, Burnley's next. Currently in the 5th position. Yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think we're going to do against Burnley? Do you think we can get a better performance? We should be getting some players back. Like I say, it sounds like Amorim's saying that Bruno could be back, and I think he mentioned Mount as well, so they both could get some minutes. That's going to be welcomed because we need the options. As much as it might impact us in midfield, bringing a player like Bruno back, it's just that. And this isn't anything against Bruno per se. It's just that he's in the wrong position. And for me, his position's always been best as a number 10. And I probably would put him as a false 9 before putting him in midfield, really. And I think breaking up, mind the pun, but breaking up that midfield of Ugarte and Casemiro, especially when Ugarte has had a decent game today. Casemiro just does what he does. He doesn't always look fantastic, but I think his presence... I think the trust that the team has in him, I think the fact that he can step up when we're losing, but he can also step up when we're drawing or winning and sort of close things out. And I always say he's got the dark arts, Casemiro. He's always a player that makes me chuckle when I'm watching the games. Some of the stuff he does, from sort of being strong in the box at corners and getting a header in and getting a goal here and there, right down to knowing when to fall on the floor, knowing where to put his legs, where it looks like that player's, or he tangles legs together and he's on the floor and he's sort of asking for a free kick and stuff like that. They're the sort of things that sound simple, as I said before, but they count. The slow momentum down of the other team. It gives us the chance to get up the field or a chance to sort of compose ourselves, and they're the sort of experience stuff that he does when you're closing out a game, and you do definitely need that. Definitely need that. It's a massive help when you haven't got a lot of naive players running around trying to score a goal when you don't need them to do that, so they're shooting from way outside the box, for example. You need that sort of player that does those. It doesn't always have to be running the ball into the corner flag. Sometimes it's just some of that stuff of shielding the ball for a bit, allowing a naive opposition player to put the foot through you so that you can just drop on top of the ball, slow the game down, get a free kick and go again. And there's the sort of things that players like him do and do count, and doesn't always look pretty or anything that's fantastic. It's not a step over, it's not a wonder strike, it's not a powerful header, but it's just something that does actually work in the game to slow things down and take the sting out of the game. And it is a momentum shifter, or freezes momentum of the other players, other opposition players. So it does count, by the way. So anyway, in terms of final thoughts then, like I say, hard to sort of sum up how I feel about the game, if I'm honest. Definitely when we went 1-0 down, it was sort of spitting feathers, fucking what's going on here? What the hell are these players doing? And then quickly we draw level and you're thinking, oh, it's not too bad. Okay, then spoke too soon in a sense, and then you're almost on the edge of your seat thinking, oh, we could get a winner here. So they do, as I've always said, they put in that sort of roller coaster environment where you're up 1 minute, you're down the next, or you're down 1 minute, you're up the next, and then you're back into that hope zone. So before they score in that hope of going 1-0 up and maybe winning the game, then they get the first goal and you're thinking, oh, here we go, this is the worst team ever. And then you draw a level and you're back into that hope zone when you're thinking, right, or you even do that thing where you're saying, oh, well, 1-1, okay, at least we haven't lost. And how many times have we said that, where you look at the result and think, oh, well, at least we haven't lost. And we need to sort of snap out of that, because there's going to be too many of those, at least we haven't lost. And I just, again, Elland Road, and I'm saying it now and it's almost like a contradiction, but Elland Road, on paper, and if he was offered that on paper, probably before a ball's kicked, you might say, I'll take a 1-1 at Elland Road. I'll take that back to Old Trafford and put that point on the board. In the game, when you see that they haven't played particularly well, and we had opportunities. I'm not saying they didn't, but we had opportunities. I think coming away and saying I'll take a draw changes for me, because I think there was enough opportunities for us to leave that game 2-1. But anyway, didn't happen. Ended 1-1. Overall performance was sort of okay, with a sprinkling of good play here and there. So there's probably examples of intricate good play in both halves where we've managed to get the ball to the edge of their area, do a couple of nice, maybe, I would never say that I was trained, the flicks and stuff. It's opportunistic sort of thing. It's what happens. And again, it's going back to what I was saying before, where sometimes, if not always now with these teams, and it can happen from Wolves all the way up to Arsenal, where the teams are overcoached and players are playing in zones and they don't want to cross certain lines and they don't want to do certain things. I think then you restrict players, so you flare players. Now, obviously, I'm saying Cunha needs restricting at times because I think he holds onto the ball too long. But sometimes you want your players that have got a bit of magic, a bit of skill. You don't want to suffocate that. You want that to come out now and again, especially in a tight game like today, where you want... So again, to be fair, Cunha gave us a bit of everything today, to be honest, because he's put the ball in the back of the net with a volley. Okay, flag probably went up just before he put the ball in the back of the net, but you got that bit of magic from him. You got that sort of goal that separates teams in a game like this. So you got a little bit of everything from Cunha, and hence why I've put him as the man of the match. So you don't want to stifle that too much. It can be frustrating sometimes when he holds onto the ball too long and it feels like he wants to take the ball from Lamonza's foot all the way to goal. But again, it's useful at times where it takes a bit of pressure off and it allows us to progress the ball from our half to their half, because I don't always feel that we're that good at that in terms of our build-up. I think the build-up routine that Amorim started with when he first came into the club, you could sort of see it was a bit of a... I kept saying it was like a swaying effect from in the defence first and then trying to progress it down the channels, down the wings, using the wing-backs and then cutting back sort of thing. Sometimes it might go into midfield and do a bit of a triangle sort of scenario, and there was a little bit more of defined build-up getting up to the opposition's box. Now we've had a mixture of things. So as I was saying before, we kind of did like a direct play, especially very distinctive against Liverpool, where it was very direct and it was flick on from Sesko, in behind for Mbeumo, goal type thing. Then we've kind of reverted back a little bit where we're doing a little bit of swaying, but not quite the same. There is a lot of, measured would make it sound good, slow build-up, and sometimes too slow of a build-up. So then it's allowing the opposition to set again and come on to us and probably squeeze us back a little bit. So then we end up going back to the keeper. Keeper then goes long. And if we don't get that first ball and we don't get the second ball, then the ball's coming back at us. So that is a bit of an issue. So we do need to improve that. There is a lot of improvement that's needed. Still, Amorim doubt, because he's doing a lot of dodgy things at times. Dodgy substitutions, maybe not today, but dodgy substitutions. Going and doing the sort of 4-3-3 or the 4-3-2-1 and then going back to 3-4-3. Just odd things like that, and showing his age or his inexperience, especially in a league like this and a team like this. And I think if you do well in a setup, stick with it. I appreciate it's not his formation, and appreciate he's going to want to be as close to his 3-4-3 as possible to feel like him and feel like he's got a purpose at Manchester United. But I don't know what's going on. I don't know whether he's changing because he wants to, changing because of pressure. I think it's one of those where he's saying, I ain't done this because of you. Well, if I've said it, then it's because of you, because I brought it up. And I think he's done that where it's like, oh, I've not changed formation because of fan pressure or pressure from the press or pressure from anywhere else. I've done it because I feel like it's sort of thing. I think if you have, you don't bring it up. You just get on with it. And I think that's because you're sort of under pressure to change. So the sad thing about it is, as much as a lot of us are screaming for a 4-3-3, we've also got to remember, I'm in two minds and two camps myself, but let's also remember we have mainly played that sort of 4-3-3 under a lot of our coaches since Fergie. And okay, we've ended up with FA Cup, Carabao Cup, we've ended up getting to finals, and we have actually had maybe like a second place finish with Ollie, I think it was. I don't know what it was. The highest was with Eric Ten Hag. It might have been third. I can't remember now. So you could say there was a little bit of success there. However, we still didn't get to the pinnacle. We still didn't get a Champions League or a Premier League in the 4-3-3. But I suppose the argument is, do we play better in the 4-3-3? Do we have players better suited to the 4-3-3? Have we got players that have grown up on 4-3-3 or a combination of that? And I think that's what you kind of need to think about. And Amorim needs to definitely think about. And he might have to just sideline his formation for now until he gets the players for it. And I think he's not going to get the players for his formation until we start winning things and moving up the league and getting more money. But also, have we got a board that know what they're doing? That is the question, and it's the question I'll leave you with. Have we got a board that know what they're doing at Manchester United? Does Barada from City? Does Wilcox? You could say from City as well because he's been there, but doing that role he's doing now, was it Southampton? Does Sir Jim, you name it, know what they're doing? It's not looking that way at the moment. I know things take time. But as things are in terms of progression, it's not as quick as we'd all want it. That question's left to yourselves. But again, feel free to make some comments after the video as well, and we can look at that. So I'm going to wrap things up now for a Sunday. Happy New Year again, for those that's not had that message from me. As always, thank you for watching Dan Talks United. Please like, please share, please subscribe as well. And I will see you